Yes, good evening, Bev. I think what this incident shows is that the monarchy is not as modern and progressive as Charles and Camilla desperately want to present it as. We have here a very senior figure, someone who, of course, joined the royal household in 1960, who served for decades, was very close to Queen Elizabeth, who herself is godmother, one of the godmothers of Prince William and a friend of Charles. But clearly, her comments suggest that in fact, not all members of the royal household have really embraced a sense of sensitivity and awareness of the struggles that non-white people face in Britain and elsewhere.
And of course, she had a role too that was supposed to welcome people, to explain to people about how the household worked. And she could have been passing on these views and these attitudes for years.
I think that's right. Look, this role, which is an unpaid voluntary role, is one that's been around for centuries. It's very common for particularly female members of the royal family to have ladies in waiting who serve them, who are usually aristocratic women, and who really come from a very similar narrow elite background. But for all the travel that this woman did with Queen Elizabeth, it's clear that she remained, as is perhaps understandable, within really quite a small social bubble. And I think this is a problem for the royal family, that they are perhaps still surrounded to an extent by people who really do not reflect the diversity of modern Britain or the modern Commonwealth.
Yeah. What have you made of the royal family's response? Has it gone far enough? Of course, she stood aside and apologised, but what more needs to be done to modernise this monarchy?
Yes, I think the response from Prince William was particularly interesting because I think through a spokesperson, Prince William made very clear that his view, and this is, of course, one of his godmothers that we're talking about, really that this person done the wrong thing and that it was right for her to step aside. So I think he's been very clear about that. I do think in the future, William and Kate will need to look at perhaps expanding the circle of people who advise them and making sure that when they have their own events, social events, that a diverse group of people welcome a diverse group of people to royal households. It's particularly tricky, however, for Camilla and Charles, because Charles is a personal friend of this woman. He obviously chose her as a godmother for one of his children. And Camilla, in turn, works with and has this lady's daughter as one of her formal ladies in waiting. So this is a very intricate, entangled relationship. And I think it will be easier for the younger generation, William and Kate, to make changes than for Charles and Camilla.
Yeah, because, you know, to a degree, this event, which was, you know, to sort of highlight domestic abuse and the abuse of women, was something of a rebranding for the Queen Consort, because there is this sense that even she, Camilla, needs to sort of embrace a younger, more modern outlook.
Absolutely. And what's ironic is that it's only last week that it was announced that Camilla was dispensing with the ladies in waiting, that very traditional role, and instead having a less formal role of Queen's companions, of which this lady's daughter is one of them, while this lady, a former lady in waiting, is now named as a lady of the household. But she was still present at this event and obviously tasked in part with, as you say, in theory, welcoming people and in theory, putting people at their ease. And it could not have been worse timing for not just Charles and Camilla, but also William, because William and Kate are currently visiting America. Their first visit there since 2014. Their first is Prince and Princess of Wales. And the timing is tricky because Meghan and Harry are visiting New York this weekend to collect, of all things, an award for their own campaign against racism. We know that the next Netflix documentary of Harry and Meghan is due to air next week. And of course, in the new year, Harry's memoir, Spare, is due to hit the bookshelves. So this is a really important moment for the royal family to be putting their best foot forward. And it's really hard to have seen it really go worse.
Yeah. You know, many say that the monarchy continues to run a very concerted campaign against Meghan Markle, who famously called out a royal member for racism. But does this incident give those comments greater credibility?
Well, I think it does. In fairness to the royal family, I think they have responded very quickly. And I think appropriately, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. I also think that William has made it very clear that in his view, this is really not acceptable. So I think we need to be cautious about assuming that all members of the royal family share the views of this individual. I think what will be really interesting is to look at the coronation of Charles and Camilla next May, and to see how they may have learned from this episode and perhaps make further efforts to include more diverse and more in the reality of modern Britain, which is it's a very diverse population. and include that in their actual ceremonies.
Yeah. Great to chat, Cindy. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Beth.